Bear is a Class 35 Hymek diesel hydraulic locomotive built by the Western Region of British Railways. He suffered from a few teething troubles when he was on trial, but struck a chord with the steam engines, especially Henry. The Fat Controller was impressed and decided to buy Bear, and has been a credit to the railway ever since. Bear has never been in or caused any accidents whilst running on the railway. He keeps himself out of trouble. But one day this is all about to change. Bear arrived to collect some vans from the harbour. Bill and Ben had shunned them overnight. They had stood waiting with their handbrakes hard on. They were comfortable and didn't want to move.
Come along, called Bear. Wake up, it's time we're off.
The trucks grumbled to each other.
Push off, we're not going anywhere.
Bear was cross. He never let trucks speak to him like that. He revved his engine furiously.
Someone call the zoo. There's a bear that's escaped.
The trucks chortled to themselves.
Give it up, snapped Bear. You'll come with me.
Buzz off,
shouted the truck.
Bears don't go buzz, they go roar,
cried another. Bear revved his engine even louder.
I've had enough, now shut up.
Oh, temper,
giggled the trucks. Bear's patience snapped. He roared his engine fiercely, but before he realized it, Bear suddenly shot forwards and collided with the trucks. The trucks groaned as Bear was reversed away. His engine was shut down as the driver and guard inspected the damage.
Well, that's done it,
sighed the driver, pointing to Bear's twisted buffer beam.
You can't pull the train like that. I'll phone control and get them to send another engine,
said the guard. Bear felt very ashamed. He felt even more ashamed as James had brought the Fat Controller to inspect the damage. James showed little sympathy. You can always tell you're one of us by having your first accident, he chuckled, and still laughing, James pulled the train away. The Fat Controller spoke next.
I'm disappointed in you, Bear. This isn't like you at all,
he said with his arms crossed and shaking his head.
I know, sir. I'm sorry, sir. I just lost my patience with the trucks. It won't happen again, sir,
quivered Bear. The Fat Controller gave a small smile. He knew Bear was truly sorry.
You've got a good record of reliability, Bear. I want you back in working order as soon as possible. You will proceed to Vickerstown Works, where they'll do the repairs needed.
The Fat Controller turned on his heel and walked towards the station ramp. Bear arrived at the works with no other mishaps occurring. The workmen were friendly and promised to make Bear as good as new. The Fat Controller phoned ahead and told us you'll be having a new coat of paint after your repairs, said a workman. Bear smiled happily as he was driven into the workshop. The workmen were true to their word, and within a week, Bear's buffer beam was almost complete. Bear was pleased to almost be in running service again. He grew bored of being cooped up in the works and longed to be let out again. One night, Bear couldn't sleep. He knew it was very late, but he struggled to keep his eyes closed. Bear thought he saw a workman. He closed his eyes tight and then opened them again to regain focus. A workman was outside. He walked calmly over the tracks towards a line of empty trucks.
What's he doing?
Muttered Bear to himself. The workman walked around the other side of the trucks. He was now out of view. There was a clanking noise, followed by a thud. Bear gasped.
Why is he uncoupling the trucks and releasing their brakes?
Just then, 4 trucks began to roll slowly down the siding. As they rolled along, they revealed the empty space where the workman should have been standing. Bear's mouth dropped.
Where's he gone?
He squeaked in disbelief. The trucks began to pick up speed, but they were derailed by trap points. Bear's eyes shot from side to side to see if he could find the culprit of the runaway, but the workman was nowhere to be seen. Bear refused to close his eyes until dawn appeared. That morning, the workman discovered the trucks were off the rails. Bear was startled as the workman opened the doors of the workshop.
Oh, thank goodness it's you.
He sighed with relief.
What's wrong with you? Asked the workman. You're as pale as old Dean Morris.
Bear was puzzled.
Who?
He frowned.
Oh, Dean Morris wanders around these works at night. He probably set those trucks off,
he said cheerfully, almost forgetting the seriousness of the situation.
That must have been who I saw last night, said Bear. I hope the fat cajoler gives him the sack.
How can he? Laughed the workman. He's dead. Bear's eyes widened with shock.
He's
dead, he stuttered.
Yeah, of course, explained the workman. He was one of the men who built this works. But he made some enemies during his life, and one day he was murdered by another workman on site. He tried to hide Dean's body, but was caught in the act and was sentenced to, death. Old Dean Morris walks around these works, looking for his murderer, but will never find him, so instead he causes trouble.
Bear had been speechless throughout this discussion. He finally found his voice.
What sort of trouble?
He whimpered.
Oh, nothing serious, just moving and hiding tools. He'll do you no harm. Nothing serious? Bear exclaimed. No harm? I saw him derail those trucks.
But the workman wasn't listening as the breakdown crane arrived to reroute the trucks. Bear wasn't convinced old Dean Morris was harmless at all. He felt very uncomfortable in the works and desperately wanted to leave. Later that day, the workmen had finished repairing Bear's buffer beam and were now beginning to sand down Bear ready for his repaint. Bear wished they weren't. He didn't want to stay a moment longer at the works. Suddenly, a deep tone whistle filled the works as Douglas backed into the workshop next to him.
Oh, hi, Bear. I hear you've been having some trouble. Yes, I have, cried Bear. It's this stupid ghost. Everyone says he's harmless, but he derailed those trucks, and now I bet he's after me next.
Douglas burst out laughing.
Ghosts! He chuckled. I was on about your buffers, but if you want to tell ghost stories... It was a ghost! His name's old Dean Morris, said Bear earnestly. I think you've been in here for far too long. Ghosts canna hurt ye.
Soon, an inspector arrived to speak to the engines.
Douglas, you cannot be worked upon until you have been cooled down and have no more steam. Bear, your repaint will only be quick. The Fat Controller needs you back in service tomorrow.
Bear was pleased to be out soon. Douglas began whooshing steam from his safety valves and making eerie, spooky noises.
Ooh, I'm old Dean Morris. Ooh.
Bear grunted and took no notice. That night, Bear and Douglas were alone in the sheds. Douglas was still sizzling, with steam wafting from his steam pipes. As the Scottish engine slept, Bear was on the lookout. He nervously glanced from side to side to see if he could spot old Dean Morris, but he saw nothing. Finally, out of sheer exhaustion, Bear drifted off to sleep too. No sooner had Bear closed his eyes, footsteps could be heard in the workshops. The air grew colder. Douglas could feel the drop in temperature and began to wake up. He woke suddenly when he felt someone walking around his cab and fiddling with the controls.
Who's here?
Barked Douglas. No one replied.
Show yourself!
He snapped.
You're...
Douglas suddenly felt his handbrake being taken off and his regulator being opened gently.
Bear! Bear! Wake up, Bear!
Exclaimed Douglas, but Bear was fast asleep. Douglas still had enough steam in his boiler to move forwards. Slowly and silently, Douglas felt himself crawling to the workshop door. "Bear, wake up! I'm moving!" he cried in fright. Bear woke suddenly. "Help! Help!" shouted Douglas at the top of his voice. Bear could only watch helplessly as Douglas was rolling down the sidings. Luckily, a brake van had been left on Douglas's line. The Scottish engine rammed into the brake van. The van screeched along, struggling to hold the engine's weight, but eventually it brought Douglas to a standstill. Bear was about to call out to Douglas when he noticed something in the corner of his eye. Old Dean Morris was standing on the line in the workshop where Douglas had been stabled. He looked threateningly at Bear. Bear froze. He didn't dare look. He closed his eyes tight, but he had to open them to see if Douglas was alright. As he opened his eyes slowly, he peeked through them to see if the coast was clear. Old Dean Morris had vanished. Bear's throat had gone dry, and the temperature in the workshop had returned to normal. The next morning, the workmen were astonished to find Douglas outside. Bear's repaint was finished, and he shunted Douglas back inside. The two engines tried to explain to the workmen it was the ghost of old Dean Morris, but the men took no notice. They would all roll their eyes and say what silly engines they were, and how old Dean Morris was harmless. But Bear and Douglas knew otherwise. When it was time for Bear to depart and return to service, Douglas was very skittish. Oh, please dinna leave me, Bear, with a wee ghost about, he begged.
"I'm sorry,"
muttered Bear.
"I can't. Be on your guard tonight, Douglas."
And with a toot of his horn, Bear rolled nervously away, leaving Douglas to fend for himself. Bear is even more careful now on the Fat Controller's railway. He is determined to never have any more accidents, or he will have to face the consequence of spending a night with old Dean Morris. That is something Bear never wants to experience again.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the video because it was not fucking made for kids.